Hey friends, it's Christy with AG Takes Over. Glad you're here. I wanted to film this little intro after the fact, just because I'm about to drop you into what will feel like the middle of a video. It's because it is. A couple months ago, I asked everybody, "Hey, what are some controversial topics in the doll collecting community?" And I meant American Girl doll collecting community, and people responded with a whole lot of topics, and I looked through them all, and I started writing notes and typed up like 13 pages of notes, and I was like, this is probably going to have to get broken up. So the first video aired last month, also ASL accessible. Hey me. The second video is this one, and then the third and final video will be next month. So I'm releasing it over 3 months. So I'll try my darndest to remember to link the first one in the description, but let's get started with part 2. Next up, ageism. This is number 13. Why does society at large consider dolls something to grow out of as opposed to video games or model railroads, and I added, or Legos? Probably misogyny. Probably, man. I think historically dolls have been presented, like I mentioned earlier, as practice for being a mom and being a caregiver and living your life in the service of other people. So when you get a little older, you're supposed to set the dolls aside and start doing it for realsies, right? Like set your sights on becoming a caregiver in real life and start thinking about becoming wife material. But video games and Legos and model railroads haven't historically been presented to us as boys, or been presented to boys as like training for your adult fate. So those get treated very differently. And it's clear that Pleasant Rowland's mission was not to teach girls how to be moms or wives. And I effing love that. But I do still think it probably surprised her to see kids not growing out of their Pleasant Company dolls. I don't know. I wonder what she thinks or thought about all of this, about, all of these adults, or even like people getting into it as adults, since that's not her original vision. If anybody, if she's shared anything publicly on that topic, like please let me know in the comments. I'm just interested. Next one. Should American Girl include characters who are LGBTQ plus in their books? Yeah, sure. I mean, ask an out and unapologetically queer person. Yes, this queer mama says yes and yes. I don't think the doll characters, like historicals or Girl of the Year, the ones that have books written about them, I don't think that they should have their sexuality mentioned, because none of these dolls ever have their sexuality mentioned, the main characters, right? I think that's one of the few principles that has been consistent across the company for almost 40 years, right? Like lots has changed over the years, but like for these girls, boys or girls or other people are not like, there's not crushes. That's not part of their story. And I love that. And I wouldn't want that changed. However, older siblings, parents, grandparents, teachers, cousins, neighbors, lots of side people in the American Girl books do have evidence of their sexuality mentioned, right? Like the mom and the dad, or, the older sister I was just reading about Brown Deer. I was reading the Kaya books recently, and like the whole courtship thing with Cut Cheek and, and Mary Ellen's older sister, lots of characters where the dating or divorce and things like that in Julie's book and Courtney's book, whatnot, has been evident. So fair game. Sure. That's a really appropriate opportunity for LGBTQ plus representation. And they could certainly have trans characters, like main characters, because that's not about sexuality. So, and trans kids exist. And it feels in line with the way that the company has approached its stories. But will the company ever do it? Not bloody likely. In this fascist state? No. They were too cowardly to do it before we started our plummet into authoritarianism. They are not likely to start now. Should they? Yes, ethically, morally, I would love it. I'm here for it. I'm not holding my breath, obviously. Number 15. Are dolls for play or display? Do they come out of the box or stay in? Is it controversial? I'm not sure it should be. I mean, at least among adults, like, you prefer to get your dolls out? Go for it. That's me, 100%. Like, you'd rather admire your dolls while they're in boxes, though? Yeah, I don't get it personally, but that seems like a harmless preference to me. Go for it. I think the only time for me when it feels a little bit more controversial is when parents get dolls for their children, but they don't allow them to take the dolls out. And if you are such a parent, maybe you can explain that in the comments, but you also don't have to defend yourself. I think that that's an area where it's more of a legitimate controversy. Because I do worry that like excessively restrictive approaches can have a negative impact on children. So, yeah. All right, next one. Do you keep the doll boxes? Do you keep the clothes boxes? Again, I don't think that it's a controversial topic, or it shouldn't be anyway, but yeah, some people do feel strongly about this. And some people like, no, don't, that's silly, that's ridiculous. And others are like, I absolutely keep every single box of all of the things. And I think a lot of people are very like torn, trying to find the right approach to this. I don't know, it depends. The size of your collection, what are your collection goals? What kind of storage space do you have? It shouldn't really be controversial. I'm going to move on. Number 17. Do you send a doll to the hospital to replace their head or fix them up yourself? Again, I think there's very little consensus on this one, but I also don't think there needs to be consensus on this one. Some people have mobility issues that don't allow them to do as much doll rehab as others. Some people are very attached to their dolls' faces as part of their personalities, and to change their head would be to erase who they are. Like, you know, kind of like replacing your child's dead goldfish while they're away at school. And some things just can't be fixed at home. Like, if your doll has had her eyebrows colored over with Sharpie, you can't fix that and restore them to their natural state. Because if you remove the marker, you're going to remove the eyebrow, and then you would have to be able to have the skill to draw that back on convincingly. Yeah, I think some people get very frustrated that others send dolls into the doll hospital for little things that they could have done at home, but so I don't know. A few of these I'm like, I don't know. Doesn't feel super controversial to me. Next one. Do you purchase dolls secondhand, or do they need to be new and pristine? Again, and I think we are going to get back to some like legit controversial ones, but I wanted to include everybody's questions. I don't think that this one's particularly controversial. I know people have different personal preferences. Some people would rather buy all their dolls used for a lot of reasons. Like, they may be cheaper, not always. It's more environmentally sustainable. And they may not want to directly support Mattel or American Girl financially. Some people buy all their dolls new, and they have lots of reasons too, just different ones. Like, they may like the rewards point system. They like having a return policy. They like knowing they're the first to own a doll, and they're starting with a clean slate rather than replacing a doll that somebody already assigned a personality to. And some people also prefer them due to concerns about mold or smoke or pet dander or any other like allergens or offensive smells. I buy a mix of used and new because that's what works for me, but some people are really invested in trying to convince others to take, I don't know, are they? Are people really invested in trying to convince others to take their same shopping approach? I think if they are, I haven't noticed. You can let me know. Is anybody like poo-pooing the way that you approach it and telling you should be doing something drastically different? And is more than one person doing that? Is this really a controversy? All right. Next one says, is this doll's eye wonky? Is their hair too messy? This is similar to a comment that was above, so my answer is the same as earlier, just in case that this is in a separate, not in the same video. I'll repeat the answer. I do think that it's controversial because people get pretty heated about real people aren't perfect either. Just enjoy the doll. Like those of you who return dolls for every little thing are going to push the company to have a more restrictive return policy, and they're going to charge us even more. And then other people will respond immediately with, the company is perfectly capable of producing high quality dolls. They don't do it consistently because they want the biggest possible profit margins and think that we won't care if they cut corners. Meanwhile, the prices of the dolls are going up, not down. If we don't complain and return dolls that don't meet our standards, they're just going to keep lowering and lowering the quantity, hoping that we won't notice or will be too concerned with looking grateful to speak up. No thanks, I'm complaining. So I can understand both of these perspectives. I already said, don't try to find fault in a doll that you already like. That I have big feelings about, but if you notice something and it bothers you, and it is something that feels reasonable to expect the company to have caught, reach out to them. I don't know. You make the call that feels right to you. All right, number 20. All right, number 20. Should specific face molds be used only for specific races? More than one person brought this up. I do not think it's my place to answer that for anyone else. It is absolutely a controversial topic, one that sparks stronger emotional reactions than many of the other ones on this list. I think that some good questions to ask on this particular subject are, who believes that this is true? Who believes that specific face molds should only be used for specific races? Why do they believe it's true? Is there research or historical context or cultural practice that backs up their feelings? And how does this topic impact them? And then conversely, who believes this is not true? Who believes that any face mold should be able to be used to represent any race? And why do they believe that? Is there research or historical context or cultural practice that backs up their argument? And how does this topic impact them? So I am a big fan of listen, be a quiet listener on this topic if you don't feel like you're the right one to be, throwing out prescriptive decisions. So I'll just sit back and listen. Those are the questions that I'll ask myself. Those are the questions that I ask myself when I'm reading people's comments. Like, who are the people weighing in this way and that way? Are they providing, historical, cultural, anything else, research, practice to back this up, and what is the impact on them? Next one, how are tariffs going to impact Mattel's products? I guess this is controversial. I mean, it's going to make them more costly to produce. The Cuckoo Pants changes his mind every 20 seconds, so who knows what they'll end up being. I think that right now it's 30% and it was 145%. So who knows? Who knows? It's going to make them more costly to produce. The company probably could eat the cost and make do with slightly less obscene profit margins, but shareholders wouldn't hear of it. And if there's one common thing among CEOs of multi-billion-dollar companies, it's greed. Will it cause companies to improve service or marketing to entice customers to spend more for the same products? We shall see. Will they streamline their product lines? We shall see. Will tariffs or will prices go back down if/when tariffs end? I don't think so. I don't know, obviously, but people love to speculate. And there are some very different types of American Girl doll collectors in the larger doll community, like those who recognize that the impacts of tariffs on a toy company or the prices of our dolls is the least of our concerns as our company rolls back civil rights, due process, and, law are deemed optional, and a criminal fascist oligarch attacks our citizens and our government. And those who honestly believe that the fascist oligarch, those who honestly believe he is intelligent and understands the economy and cares about him. So because those two different types of people exist, and lots aside from that, there's not agreement on this, and probably there are strong feelings. Those people, the latter, tend to be very much of the, so it'll cost me more, I'll pay for it, it'll be worth it, get rid of that Chinese junk and go back to making things here. I do not have the time. No, look, I am like, to soothe my stress as I think about that, I'm just over here playing with Z's hair. I do not have the time nor the desire to tackle that issue in depth in this video, but yeah, on second thought, I guess what impact will the tariffs have is a controversial topic. Who knew? All right, number 22. Should all American Girl dolls have Tennys hand shape versus the current hand shape? I did not expect this one. I wonder what percentage of people wish that American Girl dolls had Tenny hand shapes. I will say, I think that when you have a doll whose fingers can't be moved, like all of the 18-inch, American Girl, Our Generation, Maple Leaf, My Life As, all of that, there will be pros and cons to whatever hand position the company chooses. And I think there are enough people who dislike Tenny's hand that if American Girl decided to give all of the dolls that same hand shape so they can more easily hold stuff, yes, there would probably be an uproar. So I guess it's controversial. I don't think that many people are putting that out there that that's something they want. But if the company were going to do it, I think there would be a stink about it for sure. Number 23. When people have an issue with white people owning black dolls, or vice versa, when a black person buys a white doll. Sort of like when people say dolls are for kids, or more specifically, dolls are only for girls. I don't know that it is sort of like those second 2 points. And I'm going to be honest, I cannot imagine anyone but an all-out racist having an issue with white people owning black dolls. Like, sometimes I hear people say, my mom didn't let me own black dolls. She wasn't racist, but she was. I'm sorry. She was. She may not have been a raging bigot, but like she had internalized a whole lot of white supremacist values if she told you that you couldn't have a black doll. Probably. There would have to be an outlier if you're telling me that there's some other reason, but I really can't imagine somebody who's, other than an all-out racist having an issue with white people owning black dolls. And who's mad when black people own white dolls? Is this a thing? I have honestly never heard of this. Let me know if you've heard this, and if you have you heard it from more than one person? I do think that the second and third points are more controversial topics because plenty of people think dolls are only for kids. We talked about that earlier. And plenty of people think dolls are only for girls. And we'll cover that later. So yeah, I think the second two are, but I don't know if that first one is really a thing. People's feelings, number 24, people's feelings about the colored hair dolls. And we know what they mean by the colors that are not naturally occurring in humans when they're born, right? Like pink and blue and purple and green and all that. This one is still pretty legitimately controversial. I think it is easy to be dismissive of people who don't like the unnatural colored hair, to dismiss them as like curmudgeons, shaking their fist a la, in my day, we didn't have these newfangled things. Because to be honest, sometimes that's who they are. Like, if it walks like a duck, if it quacks like a duck. But I think there are people who like them for less easily dismissed reasons. If you listen to them with an open mind, I think some people's feelings are the dolls are marketed to 6-year-olds who should be building confidence in the kids that they are as they are and not, entertaining this notion that like anything needs changed. Every decision a toy company makes is intentional, and every decision sends a message. So when you look at the totality of smaller body size on these dolls, they've added the painted lashes, the hair colors that would require a brunette child to regularly put harsh chemicals on their heads to achieve the look of a truly me doll. That's a lot of messages. That line is supposed to represent the 6-year-old girls that they're marketed to. Some people love them. Some people don't. I don't think on this topic, as many others, the reasons behind the opinions can, on both sides, is as superficial as people always assume. You know, some people love them because their child really, you know, has always wanted pink hair, and they're 8 or 9 years old and they finally have it and they want a doll that looks like them and they like that representation, right? But I especially think that the naysayers of those hair colors are often like summarily dismissed, and sometimes they might actually have some reasons that you would be interested to hear. Number 25. The idea that a doll has to be American because it is called American Girl. Should American Girl make dolls from other countries? A couple people ask this. I mean, they have. Josefina's story took place when her home was part of Mexico. Kirsten was Swedish. She had just come to the United States, well, to this land, right? Emily is from England. Kaya's story took place before the United States was the United States, and she wasn't an American. So yeah, they also made the 8 Girls of Many Lands. Not 18-inch dolls, but still, they have. And the dolls themselves have never been produced in the United States. So in a very technical sense, none of them are American. But yeah, being serious, I don't know. Let me know what you think in the comments. I don't have a strong opinion. Or I didn't think about it long enough to form one. All right, number 26. YouTubers do, like AGTubers, so this is still American Girl related. American Girl YouTubers doing reaction videos to things that they don't personally have and or wouldn't even buy for their dolls. They just hop on the trend bandwagon of doing reaction videos for the sake of putting one up, but they themselves don't even like the items or would never even buy it. I told this person, you are trying to get me to say something that's going to piss people off. Look, I have done in hundreds of videos. I have made one video that was a reaction to a product line that I didn't yet own and I didn't plan on buying because I did have strong opinions on the line. Also, I knew that my wife was going to end up buying some of it, but I didn't plan on buying it. So I can't say that I have never done it because technically I have. But there are reasons that I don't make a habit of it. And this is not prescriptive, right? I'm just telling you the reasons that I don't do it on a regular basis or practically at all. One, I don't want to get caught up in the gotta have it first, gotta chase the trends mentality. I just don't personally. It will make dolls not enjoyable for me. And it's really important that I get to just enjoy them. 2, I don't want to pile onto the hyper-consumerism that folks already face in this community unless it is something that I genuinely plan on buying or something that I already own. And then I'm not doing it for that intention, but like I might share it anyway, knowing that there is a risk that I'm just piling on. Dog is going crazy upstairs. I don't know if you can hear that. And then 3, I do generally prefer to do actual reviews rather than like my reactions to the release of something, because that's when my videos can be the most informative and the most helpful. Like I can speak to the quality of a material or the ease of putting something on a doll. I can talk about the fit of something. If I try to see it from a different perspective though, so like I have my reasons that I don't like to take that approach in my videos. But if I try to see it from a different perspective, here's some reasons that I can imagine that people who make those videos make them like such a staple in their content. 1, they like to feel part of the emotion about new things, right? Whether that's excitement or disappointment, they just like to be part of that discussion when something new comes out. 2, it's easy content to make. And that's not like me being snarky. It's just someone may want to post more regularly and either not have the ideas or not have the time to post regularly if it involves a lot of work, and they're fairly easy. Also, people either don't have the money to buy the items or they don't financially support the company anymore, or they live abroad and they won't have access to the new items anytime soon, but they do still have a lot of thoughts and observations that they want to share. So yeah, I mean, probably many of them do it just because it'll get views. Like if we have to just say that, right? I think that that's generally evident though, when that's someone's motive. And I don't know that it's super controversial. I feel like if views appear to be the motive and you don't like that kind of approach, withhold your currency. Your currency is your view, right? Withhold your currency from that channel. I do that sometimes. If that's somebody's main form of video, it's just not my particular interest. So I withhold my view from that company or that channel. All right, number 27. This is one more about AGTube, and then we'll move on to other things. Should you continue to just show a doll on screen while you do voiceover work behind the screen, or should you engage with your audience by talking directly to the camera? Which way do audiences prefer? I don't think that this is a controversial topic. People have preferences, but I don't think they're generally like strongly held opinions or that they're prescriptive about them. I assume that people choose the option that they choose for any number of reasons, like ease of editing, limitations of time or editing skills, preference to be on screen or not be on screen due to comfort level, privacy concerns, etc. And viewers might have preferences too. As always, they can choose to watch the videos that follow their preferences. I do a mix just based on whatever works for me in that moment. But I'm not sure I've ever had one image on the screen the whole time. I don't know. I do like to mix it up visually when I'm doing a voiceover. So I at least like do a little slideshow. But yeah, do whatever. I don't think it's a controversial thing. Next one. Somebody said, I wish that American Girl would let us know when something's going to be retired. Does the company owe customers that kinds of heads up? So I think that this does qualify as controversial because when American Girl retires something, it's pretty much always without any advance notice, right? So when they close stores, on the other hand, you get an email and stuff that's saying like, we're saying goodbye soon. Essentially. And it would be nice if the same were true of items, right? Of certain items, especially since that like limited quantities label is often only indicative of like a temporary low stock, and it doesn't mean it's retiring soon or will be discontinued soon. Like that would be more helpful for people. But yeah, so somebody inevitably will post in a Facebook group, I can't believe they retired XYZ doll. I was going to get her with my very next paycheck. Why didn't they tell us beforehand? I hate this. Crying face, crying face, crying face. And then somebody else will inevitably comment something like, girl, that doll has been available for years. Why didn't you buy it before now if it was so important to you? It's a little dramatic sometimes. I think that that reaction doesn't always acknowledge certain factors like financial limitations or how long someone has been into or known about or been collecting American Girl dolls. They might have just heard about the doll. So I think that can seem harsh sometimes, but I also do get some things like Girl of the Year are obviously on a timeline, right? And when the same person keeps acting shocked every year, doll after doll, that the doll is no longer available, especially if it's a Girl of the Year who's been around for like over 2 years, that can also seem a bit clueless. Like, aren't you noticing a pattern here? So yeah, I think people do have strong feelings about this. I don't know. What do you think? Do you think that American Girl owes it to or just should give customers a heads up like retiring soon when it approaches the end of its stock and it won't be making more of an item? Let me know in the comments. Number 29 is bring back the CYOs and put more face molds and eye colors and skin tones and more hair colors and styles. When I read that, I was like, is this controversial? Because this is just a wish list. And I'm pretty sure it's a common wish list at that. And then I thought about all the people who say, they're too expensive anyway. Fine by me if they don't bring them back. Or the people who say, it's not my thing really anyway, so I don't care. And then other people who are like, quality control is so poor on them that, and they've been making their return policy stricter and stricter. So I'm not going to buy a CYO anyway. I don't want to be stuck with this. And then they're like, that looks good. People aren't symmetrical. We do that on purpose. I don't think that it's been that extreme and them still trying to get away with it. But I think people sensing trends of poorer quality control and stricter return policy are sometimes like, I don't want to play those odds. And then there are also people who just feel like it's not the wisest line for a company that has been underperforming lately. And they would rather, honestly, the company scrap that line and focus on products that will do more to stay profitable. So, yeah. I don't think it's the biggest controversy, but sure. Number 30, bring back the best friend dolls. I'm not sure that this one is controversial. I wanted to include all of them. Some of them, less of a controversy. I think some people are more attached to this idea than others, for sure. But is anybody against it? Like, if you are, let me know in the comments. And please give me your rationale, because I want to know, what do you have against best friends? Yeah, I would like to know if this is legitimately a controversial topic. I can see the controversy about the smaller collections and shorter run times that the best friend dolls have been given. But does anybody think it would be a bad idea for American Girl to do best friend dolls again? Moving on. Number 31, rewigging dolls with naturally curly hair to have a different curl style or a completely different wig. And I'm going to assume that we're talking about black or brown dolls with naturally curly hair. I may be wrong, but it doesn't seem like controversial if somebody changes Courtney's wig to a straight wig. I don't think anybody would be like, oh, she did that, huh? Oh, she really did that. Was that okay? I think this is definitely controversial, and I think it's in the same vein of changing like black and brown dolls brown eyes to blue or gray or green or whatever, and I am not here to give you definitive answers. Sorry, friends. I guess I can share what guides the decision for me. So I think about what kind of representation I want my daughter to see in her toys. One of my goals as a parent is to, through her toys, through her media consumption, to try to actively decenter whiteness and have my daughter not growing up thinking that straight, for example, that straight non-textured hair is a default and that other hair types are deviations from a norm. One of my goals with our collection is to try to combat the colorism that surrounds my daughter in society. And so I wouldn't personally change a black or brown doll's eyes for lighter ones, personally. But I don't presume to know everyone else's goals with their collection. So maybe I see someone post a black doll with light hair and gray eyes without knowing that it was made specifically for someone with those features so that they can have a mini-me. And I don't mean like this white person is like, oh, I saw a cover of a magazine where somebody looked like this, or I knew somebody in my elementary school 40 years ago, and I remember she had the most, not the fetishizing kind of stuff, but like it might be a legitimate person, like I made this for my niece. This is what my niece looks like, right? So I may see something and I don't want to jump to a conclusion. As a person viewing other people's collections, I try not to assume one way or the other based on a picture. Though sometimes their words and the entirety of the collection starts to paint a clearer picture. As a collector, I would ask myself several questions. I do ask myself several questions, right? But if I were thinking about, I want to put, I want to change this doll's hair to this, like this doll's naturally curly hair to this, I would ask, what is the reason that I want this feature combination? Check myself, is colorism or fetishism at play? We don't always realize that we've internalized those things. So pausing to kind of critically examine, are those things coming into play? Do I have a larger collection that already includes ample representation of the most common feature combinations that I see in society? Or is my collection very small and this more unique feature combo will be in lieu of representation of common features? Would this decision send a message that I don't want to send to others? Would it make others feel less seen? I personally ask myself that because I do share my collection with others publicly, but I know that that's not true of everybody. So if you're the only one that sees your collection, maybe would this make others feel less seen is not something you consider. Am I reinforcing some things that I have been taught and maybe haven't examined? I don't know. Like I said, I am not here to give you definitive answers because it's not my place. I'm just sharing some of the things that I consider. All right. Number 32, people taking offense over others' doll preferences. See my answer to the last question. Because I think it's an extension of the same thing. Rather than people having preference for like, I don't think that this person is talking about people taking offense because one person collects Girl of the Year and isn't interested in historical, or this person is interested in historical and not Girl of the Year, right? I don't think that's what they're talking about. I think generally when people bring this up, they're talking about the way that race representation plays out in people's collections. But if I'm wrong, and this question is not about people liking, for example, dolls, maybe they meant when people, like the dolls with the very significant face-ups, like heavy face-ups, like dolls that are aged up and resemble like more like brats, and they have like extremely short skirts and tiny shirts and things like that. Maybe it's that, like people being offended over that type of collection. I guess that is a different kind of controversy. I can't imagine publicly or directly criticizing people for aging their dolls up and doing very heavy makeup on them. Though I think that there are, for a lot of very different reasons, some people do object to those types of dolls. Any reasons ranging from like purity culture to simply not liking the looks of it, and probably reasons that I'm not even thinking about yet. So yeah, I guess it could be about that. I assumed that they were probably talking about the way that race representation plays out in people's collections, but it could be the like aging up thing. I don't know. All right. The series isn't over. I'm not done with all these questions, but I need to pause for now and call it good for this video, and I will be back with the next installment soon. Hey, from both of us, I hope you're doing well. Take care and see you for the next installation.